Hey guys, I had the opportunity to interview Glum. If you don't know who he is one of the like top 0.13% of Leetcode on on the website. He scores typically within like the top like 500 range, top 700 maybe on like a Leetcode contest of 23,000 people. He's able to solve most Leetcode problems, if I had to guess, in about the span of about 5 minutes. If it's not 5 minutes, it's probably a harder problem. It's going to take him about 15 minutes to come up with the solution to it. He solves problems a lot, and he also has a lot of knowledge about how other people can improve their Leetcode skills. So I would recommend you guys give it a watch. Listen to what he's saying. He is an expert by all means in the field, and he has a lot of wisdom that he can impart. So he's been doing Leetcode for I don't know actually how long. I mean, I guess 4 or 5 years or something. And
How long have I been doing Leetcode?
I guess he's going to be going over. Well, I'm going to be asking him just some stuff over how he did Leetcode, and then also he's going to teach us how to do hashing, manual hashing, rolling hash. That's going to be applicable to rolling hash, and probably help for a lot of
Yeah.
algorithm problems in the future.
Damn, I have been doing Leetcode a long time. I thought I was like a newbie still.
Yeah, just last year. Time flies.
Yeah. I'm like, wow, I'm pretty good at this. And I started recently, but that's like just going too far at that point.
Yeah.
Getting old.
All right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
where do we
so
start?
well, one thing I was, curious about is like, well, how long have you been doing Leetcode? I mean, before I got like cut short last time, we were
Oh yeah, I was
talking.
talking about
Yeah,
I was like walking through my Leetcode history.
yeah. So what I got was that you had a class. You took a class in college, and during that class, the professor was like, "Oh, you guys can do Leetcode instead of like doing like other types of things, and this will help you for your career and stuff." And you were like, "Okay, yeah, sure, I'll do that." And then that's when you started doing it. And then I think the
If you go
pandemic
to
hit.
2018, yeah, you can see like there were 5 days where I was like, I don't want to do whatever assignment there was that day, so I'm just gonna do like two sum, like the
Nice.
easiest possible leak code. I remember doing print hello world and stuff like that. And
Yeah,
then
yeah. And then the pandemic happened too. And then you said like something about like moving with your family, but you said that was like terrible. And then we were talking about like the pandemic and stuff, just in general, just your
oh
thoughts on the
yeah,
pandemic.
yeah, don't eat your vegetables and don't move back home after college. That's like
Nice.
unequivocally. I'm not really one for like just giving general advice for the most part, but um, yeah, that's like not always the best idea. You gotta like keep the ball rolling, I feel like.
Yeah,
Um
I think I've heard
and like
David Ramsey say something like that.
Dave Ramsey.
Oh, he's just a personal finance guy. He's like the personal finance, like probably one of the biggest personal finance people. But he's like kind of conservative, um, like boomer. Actually,
Mm,
no, I shouldn't say conservative, right? But it's like kind of loaded. But what I just mean is like he's like boomer,
yeah,
and
well,
so
I
he's
mean
like you shouldn't live with your parents and things like that because like there's like
like
certain things that you lose.
conservative and finance and boomer, it's definitely a Venn diagram overlap there.
Yeah,
I think, yeah, I mean, for me, it's not like you're gonna be a loser and you're not gonna get a girlfriend if you do that. It's like I think of it more like it's just you build up momentum when you're like out on your own doing scary shit, and then I think a lot of people get that impulse to be like, well, that was fun. Like, time to go back and hang out with my high school friends. And it's like, yeah, no, that would be cool, but it's also um sometimes can be like stagnating.
okay.
And like
One thing.
I literally had to like logistically just I don't know how to put it like monetarily there was certain like family matters I had to attend to, I guess.
Yeah.
Um
Well, one
but
thing.
yeah, like once yeah.
Oh, well, I mean, you can keep going.
I was gonna say once that was done, I moved right back away. But you can see like in the interim in 2020, this was when I was back home, and I think this was literally there was like a forest fire that made there be not only was there the quarantine, but then there was also like a stay inside and keep the windows closed order.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like the day I started. It was like, all right, well, like what else am I gonna do? Play GTA all day?
Nice.
Which I also did.
Yeah, that's what I did during the pandemic. It was pretty
Yeah,
rough. Wait, so like so I guess I see here it's like 33 submissions, April 19th. That was like your first time
that's
after a
pretty
break.
crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
after
guess.
like basically never doing Leetcode ever. And
Yeah.
then I remember those days honestly kind of fondly. This was like I would wake up, I was on this weird kick where I was like no alcohol, not even any caffeine. Like I just was like I would wake up, I would go walk to the beach because I was very lucky in that regard, and
Nice.
then come back, have quite a bit of caffeine actually, and then just like literally start at 6 a.m. with no schedule for the day and just do Leetcode like
Hmm.
the entire day.
Yeah, like I guess
And it
what
pretty much
was
like yeah,
well, I guess what was driving
I
you
think
to do that?
um I'd say two things. Like on a surface level, I think like real estate was fun and cool, like mixed with landscaping was like fun and I kind of enjoyed it, but I definitely was like longing for a different life, you know? Um, so I think this was sort of my way of starting to be like, you know what? Fuck my current setup. Like I'm gonna start doing leak codes and see where that goes. And I'm glad I did. I think like on a deeper sense, honestly, a lot of playing League of Legends in high school primed me for this. A lot of like
Nice.
Saturdays when I was 14, waking up at 8 a.m., going to sleep at 10 p.m., much later than 10 p.m., literally just playing League of Legends, probably primed my brain to be able to and to want to do that. Like just be stimulated for hours on end like that.
Yeah. I think there's a couple studies, or at least I mean I don't know, there's not a whole lot, but that like video games helps with like problem solving. Like basically people who play video games, right? You're
Yeah,
solving problems when you're playing video games. And so like that escapes outside of just doing video games like to real life stuff.
totally. I think
Yeah.
like yeah, there's like the cognitive developmental side where you're just used to thinking really hard about stuff. And it's
Hmm.
interesting when I talk to people that are like, "Oh, your thing you did after school wasn't video games. Your thing you did after school was like reality TV." Where it's like that probably has a different skill set, but it's like people that were raised on that are like I think a little bit less primed to be in this like hyper thought mode that especially
Hmm.
like LeetCode contests kind of demand.
Hmm.
You can
And
definitely
so
like foster that.
and so you said that okay, and you mentioned real estate. I mean, I guess like I guess you were doing real estate. I didn't
Yeah, I
like
kind of got
was that
into I wasn't like an agent. I was like a property developer. Um, and those days are long behind me. But that gave me a pretty good little nest egg. Um, I enjoyed it. I really like talking to people, and I really, really like digging around in the dirt. I was like very into planting plants, and my
okay?
dog Leo was very into destroying those plants out of jealousy.
Nice.
Um, yeah, it was. I got into that just again, like kind of personal family matters, I guess. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, and I don't know. Everybody's got their kind of background, and mine is certainly my family is super heavy into computer science, but also pretty heavy into like the real estate world too.
Okay. Cool.
Video games are better than real life. That's what someone said in the chat.
Yes, Lars. Changed my mind.
Um, I used
I'm,
to think of video games purely as addictive. I was like, this is a form of escapism. And if I could not have this in my life or anybody's, that would probably be for the best.
yeah.
But more and more, I'm like, no, that really helped my mind.
Yeah. I mean, I like video games. I wouldn't say they're a replacement for real life, but but I'm just talking to Solaris, but yeah, I no, they're fun and I still play them. Okay.
Someday there'll be enough mods for Skyrim
Yeah.
to replace real life.
Bro, I really want to play Fallout too. The TV show just came out. I watched it. It was actually really good. Um, but now I want to play Fallout again.
I think the same applies to Coke for me. I
Okay,
legitimately don't know which Coke you're talking about.
the Colombian kind. So wait, um, for going back to the Leetcode stuff. So okay, and then so you were just doing it. Wait, I'm trying to get my
Yeah, I
bearings.
started the
So
contest at the beginning of last year because I was talking with Bet Simp a bit. I feel like I was learning under his wing for a while.
okay,
Um,
on stream, I'm guessing. Like you were just watching his
uh,
stream.
Actually, not really. No, I just sort of was like in vaguely adjacent circles, and he's a
Okay,
trove of information.
okay,
Um, I didn't even realize he was streaming until I started streaming, which was interesting.
okay.
Um, yeah, so that was 2020, 2021, 2022. I was like, I think 2022 is when I really picked up. 2021, I was kind of poking around, but this was still, I was like, my time was split between Leetcode time and video game time that I would have spent doing Leetcode. And then 2022, I think I like still had my desktop set up and everything, my gaming rig with my rainbow keyboard, but like I think I just was like kind of over it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you cheated to get money in GTA or if you like did the quests, but I remember like the most efficient way to get money was like to drive around in the stupid dump truck for half an hour. And it was like, yeah, like it's kind of gratifying because you know you're like working towards the next supercar in the game, but
Yeah.
it's also like, good God, like I just spent 21 minutes literally driving at 20 miles an hour in a video game. Like, what was the purpose of that?
Nice.
I think this was where I started to be like, nah, I can't in good conscience like spend my free time doing that.
Okay.
So I just like fully started grinding at that point.
Okay. Hmm. Well, and I guess I'm okay. Yeah, and then you just grinded and just kept going. That's not my guess.
I
So
Yeah. I'm
so
also a strong. Oh, go ahead.
well, you can go.
I was gonna say I'm like a strong. Like I kind of was joking there about just GTA being such an like weird game if you play it a lot and
Mm-hmm.
like turning off to that. But I
Mm-hmm.
think more what it is like if you think about if you identify as someone that's like good at something or has a certain strength, it just makes it so much easier. Like in
Yeah.
2021 and 2020, and especially 2018, if you look at my like frequency map, the reason why it doesn't look like this is because I was not good at DSA. And I effectively thought of it as like, yeah, I got the piece of paper that like I had majored in computer science, cool, but like
Yeah.
I didn't learn anything basically.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a piece of paper, but I have basically nothing else to show for it.
Yeah.
Um, and it makes it really hard to like, yeah, like in 2018 do two sum and be like, okay, not only do I have to figure out how to like do this simple question, but the whole time I'm sort of being ground against this grindstone of like, I'm bad at this and I should be better than I am.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like 2020 or 2022, I think is where I fully kind of hit the singularity and was like, I'm not identifying as bad at this anymore. I'm identifying as good at this now. Um, and maybe I think maybe the swap was that's when I started tutoring people, and that is like I'm not doing it for the money. I'm doing it just because it's like I guess for the references for the um like professional references, but also because it's like a huge confidence booster to have someone go out of their way to be like, you know a lot, please teach me.
Okay. I
I
didn't
think
know
that's
you were
why a lot of
tutoring.
people.
I didn't know you were doing that. Or I didn't
Yeah,
know you did
I
do it.
tutor. It's definitely like a very part time thing right now.
Okay. Hmm. And
Where do you apply for tutoring? I do it completely free. Like I used to do this weird thing where I would go on like really technical Reddits, like R gradient descent or or R Leetcode is probably the one I did it the most. And like late at night, I would just stay like someone would ask a weird question that was like, "Can you do this in better than O n square root of n time complexity?" And then I was like one of those redditors that would type out this like insane 5 paragraph essay about like every single thought related to that. And at the time, I was just like, I don't know, I'm bored. Like, that's my version of social media. And then it started actually, like, I even to this day still get people that will message me on Reddit and be like, "Hey, do you tutor?"
That's interesting. Very interesting. Wait. So wait, and so they would ask you, "Do you tutor?" And then you would just say, "Yeah, for free."
No, so the first person that's a good question. The first person that asked me, I was like, I haven't, but that's really flattering, and I'm down to give it a try.
Mm-hmm.
And then I remember being pretty nervous, and I remember like our first session when we talked about like payment, I was like, I remember saying something along the lines of like, what I'm really after here is like having something I can put on my resume. So
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't care that much about you paying me a lot, but like you do need to pay me something, otherwise it means a lot less.
Mm-hmm.
And that was 40 an hour. That's what he threw out, and I was like, sounds good. Or no,
Nice.
50 an hour. Sorry.
Nice. Okay. Cool. That's interesting. And okay, well, I guess what do you think is hmm. Well, yeah, what do you think is like I guess I mean kind of this is kind of like a boring question here, but what do you think is like the most important thing I guess to getting good at Leetcode?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question, personally. And
And maybe even talk about it during levels too. So like going from beginner to intermediate, from intermediate to like
uh,
to advanced maybe. So
I think
to give elos too, I guess specifically like a 1500 and going to like 1800 or something.
yeah, I think like there's some things that are generalized to all levels, and there's some things that are specific. Like I could probably be like, if you're trying to hit Guardian, you have to know um, multi-sets, but you probably don't have to know segment trees. And that's probably worth going over. But then there's also just the general things that's worth going. Like I think I do strongly believe in the whole matter of identity.
Hmm.
And in 20,
Oh, really? Ah, shoot, I just messed
yeah,
this thing
which
up.
was
Oh my bad.
oh.
I accidentally muted the thing. Um, yeah, okay, but
uh
yeah, you were saying voice chats, and
oh
tutoring
yeah, I
people
was
after
saying like I would go
layoffs.
on these like Discord voice chats, and it's a great way to network. I think like this is too Twitch. Um, what do you mean you don't have to know segment tree to be Guardian? I think if every single segment tree question, if every question that required a segment tree, you just threw up your hands and said, I'm not going to do this one, you would still hit Guardian perfectly fine.
Oh, nice. I
And I
wonder.
know that because I exactly did that. um, yeah. But oh, I was saying like in those voice chats, it's interesting because it gave me this like pretty intimate look into you have a sample, like a pretty decent sample of people that are all working at Fang, have worked at Fang, trying to get into Fang, um, or Gamma or whatever, and are
Gamma.
varying levels of skill at Leetcode. Like, what do some of them pull ahead? Like, why would they pull ahead? Like, is it just a matter of putting in your time?
Hmm.
Um, something that I found was like, again, people that were like didn't think of themselves as very good at it,
Hmm.
literally even if they were putting in the time, like would have an immensely difficult time engaging with the concept. Like cognitively, it's like looking at the sun. Like there's like a huge part of you that is just really really doesn't want to think about a concept if it's like stressing you out.
Hmm.
So if you're thinking about it like, oh God, like I landed this job at Google during the heyday and now I'm laid off and now like the world's going to shit and there's not as much space for people like me that are like doughy and not good at Leetcode. So like I'm
Yeah.
kind of fucked.
Yeah.
Like that kind of thought process, it's really tragic. That kind of thought process is
Basically
very
destroys the
self-fulfilling.
person. Yeah, it destroys the person basically and their ability.
Yeah, and it's not insurmountable. Like you can absolutely get over that. And to me, like especially with tutoring and stuff, like that's like the name of the game. Like a lot of it is knowing the concepts, but a lot of it is also like articulating the concepts in a way that people can understand. That's like
Mm-hmm.
a separate skill. But then a
Mm-hmm.
third skill I think that's really useful is literally just being encouraging and making an environment where it's easy for someone to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Okay. Well, and I think that's really interesting because well, I mean, on two parts too. One, I think that like LeetCode is a lot more mental, honestly, than like I guess people give it credit for. But then another thing too is that
yeah.
I was like reading maybe like a month ago or 2 months ago, and I like wasn't reading, but I was listening to a thing, and he was basically saying that like your ability to take in new information happens like when your mind is like really really clear. So like generally you want to study like either all like really early in the morning or like really early at night. But basically it was just that like if you have to like study for an exam and there's like a fire that's happening right there, like you're not gonna be able to focus. You're not gonna be able to do it.
Yeah.
But like internally too, you could have people who are like they just got laid off or something, or they just have like a lot of like like you could be like in a shit place too or something. Like I don't know if you're in a bad environment where you just can't focus,
Yeah,
right? But that's
absolutely.
gonna yeah, but that'll like kill your ability because you're just not gonna be able to focus. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and so you're just kind of screwed just off that on that level.
Yeah, like I think a lot of people, especially in like the computer science field and like the industry, it's not the most psychologically oriented industry. And
Mm-hmm.
like I think that gives people that gives some level of indulgence and room to that way of thinking
Mm-hmm.
a huge leg up. And like that's an example of that. Where a lot of these are just like a case of the like of nerves. Like a lot of it is more emotional development than it is learning like out of a textbook or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then so you were saying that so essentially it's just like learning concepts. Is that what you're saying? It's just learning concepts. And
Mm,
like that is like that was like what I guess leads to people succeeding, I guess, and the people you've tutored.
I I think so. I think there's like it's kind of like what are your goals?
Mm-hmm.
Like you were talking yesterday about what your goals are with like this channel and with content creation.
Yeah.
And it's not always the same for everybody. Like some people's goals are um just to straight up monetize and start a Patreon. Other people's are like to capitalize on it to advertise their own whatever. There's different things sort of, or like to put it on
Mm-hmm.
your resume. I think it's kind of similar with Leetcode in a way, where like if your goal is to get a job quickly and not put in that much effort, I think that's pretty respectable. That's not really where I'm at, but it probably should be where my priorities are.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's just like, yeah, memorize the top 75 questions and then play the numbers, like just apply to
Mm-hmm.
a bunch of places and probably half of them will ask one of the questions on that list. Um, so in that way, like getting good does mean um, just knowing patterns. But I think there's
Mm-hmm.
a skill that completely does not foster, and that's like the skill that they're actually trying to probe for in these interviews. Um, the reason why they're always trying to like add a little twist and stuff is like it's kind of like if someone asked a segment tree question that was like, do a range sum query. I would probably be like, okay, I'm just going to copy paste the segment tree template and I'm done. And I knew to do that. So like I kind of just like knew the answer to the question they were asking. But then
Mm-hmm.
if they said like, do a range sum query with a twist that required me to like basically rewrite a segment tree from scratch and really understand it in depth, like that's kind of like a different skill in a way. Um, I think it's kind of like that.
Okay.
Like personally, I see a lot of people overemphasizing these roadmaps
Solaris, I don't think
and
I've seen that.
learning specific patterns. Like now I
By
know
Jomo?
monotonic stack. Now
I
I know
might have seen
sliding
it. I've seen a
window.
lot of
Now
his
I know
videos.
DP. I don't know. Um, and I think it's like you're kind of trying to game the job interview setting, which is probably the smart thing to do if you're like need to make money quickly. But you're not like, for me, for like probably a good 1,500 of those 2,100 questions I've done, um, I just hit random over and over and over and over again. And I feel like that fosters a skill of like, if I see something I truly don't know, um, I'm able to hold my own. Like I'm able to think quickly on my feet. And it's like, I kind of think of that as just generally being smart,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to like having known the answer, like smart versus learned, or like clever versus learned, maybe. So I think there's kind
Okay.
of two skills, and it's like a matter of priority.
Okay. And okay. Also, was that ironic that you said learned?
No, what do you mean?
Okay. Okay.
I just mean like learned as in like, oh wow, you did the blind 75. Now you know those. That might be what you want if you don't really give a shit about. And I think most people don't and don't need to give a shit about what the difference between a Fenwick tree and a creep is, you know?
Yeah. Okay. Hmm. Okay. Can you do Leetcode if you have a low IQ?
My personal answer is yes, because I think like IQ is not a very good measure of intelligence. And part of that is that like this notion that IQ is somewhat fixed doesn't hold nearly as much merit as people think it does. And just like the identity thing earlier, that's very self-fulfilling.
Yeah.
Um, like I feel like I know people. There's this one person that I talk to that I think of as like if you took an IQ test, you would get it 90. Um, and it always strikes me, and it's very interesting to talk to her because like I'm like, wow, what a fascinating mind. I feel like I don't. I feel like everybody's around 110 or something.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but then it's interesting because I'm like, you don't seem to know how to spell even like three-letter words, which is kind of, you could ridicule that if you wanted. But then another side of me is like, it's just sort of like an artifact of this person's mind working really differently than most other people's.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and actually, there's moments where I see her being extremely clever in a way where I'm like, oh, like I think she literally just taught herself how to use Python for no
Mm-hmm.
reason. Like she works at Dunkin' Donuts, and it
Mm-hmm.
was like, whoa, okay, like I guess you have a low IQ, but also like clearly you have these mental faculties that could be used really well in a different
Mm-hmm.
context.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes
And I
sense. I
feel
mean,
that
that's
way
more
about
of a
myself. I think sometimes I think really slowly, and sort of because I grew up being stupid, I had to learn how to like get around that by being smart.
mm-hmm.
I don't know how much merit that has, but
Yeah. And there's two scores, verbal and IQ and performance IQ. Yeah, I didn't know that. But yeah, I mean I agree. That was mostly like a meme question. I definitely fall into the
no,
camp
yeah,
where
of
I think
course.
that I think that like uh emotional intelligence, like yeah, I don't know. I think probably honestly if you just understanding yourself is probably gonna be just way more beneficial. But
I agree. Yeah. I think it's really easy to reduce this to like acad well, for all academics, I think it's really easy to reduce it down to like information and you're a computer and how fast is your RAM and how big is your memory. But like,
mm-hmm.
I think for almost everybody, those are not really factors. The real factors are like, how willing are you subconsciously to think about something?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're not willing, even if you want to, even if you're forcing yourself to in order to get a job, it's going to be really hard compared to if you find whatever knot is tied in your brain deep down and you untie it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I mean well, I mean I could still keep asking you questions too, but or we could do the hash thing. It's up to you, I guess.
Yeah,
Whichever you prefer.
maybe maybe split the difference one half of a question, one
One
small
have
question.
one small question. Mm, well, I guess is there anything you wanted to I guess mention that you think would be helpful for people that are like trying to learn leak code?
Uh,
Or just anything you want to talk about.
for,
It doesn't even have to be like I mean if you want to talk about like how living with your parents is like detrimental or something.
I didn't. Luckily, I didn't have to live with my parents. That would have been a whole other layer of hell. Um, I mean, that probably is predicated on like the relationship you have with them. I think a lot of people are very happily living with their parents in their mid 30s.
Hmm.
Um, but if I'm
It's a thing
trying
in
to choose
Europe.
my soapbox moment here, I don't know that my grand podium statement is going to be about living with your parents in your 30s. I think learn string hashing, get comfortable with DP. If like those are the big two. If I mean not even really string hashing. You
Hmm.
don't need that to hit Guardian at all. I think that's
Oh,
like
really?
yeah. I think it seems like there generally is like maybe four, maybe five
Mm-hmm.
clusters of like Leetcode skill in terms of like contest elo. There's like people below 1500 who usually are not even doing contests. I
Hmm.
think people that have a contest score of below 1500 are really brave because that's decidedly below the threshold of all the cheaters copying a Guardian like Leetcoder. So your score is artificially really low if you're below like 1600 or 1700 even.
Okay.
Um, I think for all those people, it's just like blind 75, whatever. And then there's above that people that are like trying to, I don't know, hit Guardian or like are at a spot where maybe 2 years ago that would have been overkill for getting a job. Um, I think for them, it's probably like learning more advanced concepts and also starting to branch out and be like, okay, there's just concept memorization for the first two problems. That's pretty good. But then there's also like critical thinking and problem solving skills on the fly. And you have to
Hmm.
start getting pretty good at those in order to get like 3 out of 4 questions.
Okay.
And then there's like the Guardian cluster. And that's people that usually are like not asking, how do I get a Fang job in chats? You know how like that always gets spammed on like Discords and stuff. Those are the
Yeah.
people that are like, I know how to get one. I have to get really fucking good at Leetcode, and then they do, and then they get
Yeah.
a job, and then it's kind of good. Um, and
Yeah.
then there's the
Any hope for new
2500 to
grads?
3K. You know, for new grads. I guess get good. They say the bubble's gonna pop soon with the whole AI thing. Um, and then there's like 2500 to 3K, which I'm at the lower end of, and that's like the Leetcode absolute fucking addicts. Um, and I'm still trying to figure out how to rise through the ranks there. I think a lot of it is like this last bi-weekly clearly was a everybody that doesn't have a master's in math, like sorry pal,
Oh,
you
really?
know. That's how I see those sometimes. Is like the skill check of like, did you take this specific math class in combinatorics?
Hmm.
Um, and I did not. So for me, honestly, like the way that I treat LeetCode is it's like a retroactive master's in math and computer science, where I'm like learning, like I guess abstract algebra is probably the biggest one I'm learning right now.
Hmm.
But also like I pretty decent with combinatorics and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
but I wouldn't even say that like it's like a like because this is just like a different world, honestly. Like I wouldn't say that it's like a degree for computer science because I had my degree in computer science, and all we have to do is just calculus, calc 2, calc 3, physics 2, maybe diff eq. But it like the combinatorics here, it's like very very specific like types. Like so, what would have been 2 weeks during a CS degree in college is like critical here, I think. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, I just think of it as like sort of vaguely um probably not something you would really ever see in your undergrad unless you went to like Caltech and you had a really rigorous
yeah,
um undergraduate program. But like it's probably something you would see in a master's like it's probably something that like someone that has a master's would kind of have seen and
hmm,
someone that doesn't probably wouldn't.
okay,
But in my
okay,
mind I'm like, great. All right, well that's how I start to look like someone that had a master's is by
yeah.
just finding every single instance of where someone with a master's got it and someone without a master's didn't.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, that's interesting. I
And honestly, exactly because of this, I'm strongly considering like applying for PhD programs next spring.
oh really?
Yeah, just because like I think it's pretty conducive to how my mind works. It seems like specifically with AI, it's really hard to, even without the current state of the market, get into AI from scratch.
Mm-hmm.
Like it seems like that's a pipeline that a little bit requires you to go to grad school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, for sure. For sure. Hmm. Okay,
This one
okay.
I don't think you need math too much, but I think Q4 you do.
This is Q4,
To
isn't it?
Solaris.
Oh,
Oh
well,
yeah, or sorry, I just mean like Q3 you probably don't need too much math, but Q4 you do.
oh yeah, yeah. I don't know if he was looking at the Q4, but okay.
Whoa. All right, well, Solaris is on a different level.
Well, he also said it took him 3 days, or he was like solving these over 3 days. Like he was up solving them.
Still though.
Yeah, yeah. He got a rank 700 in one of the virtuals like a couple days ago, so he's
Yeah.
doing well. Might be on his way to
Yeah, I
getting
guess if you're trying to get from that 22 threshold to that like 25 to 3000 threshold, there's a couple rites of passage. So like the Bets and Probe map is one of them. Most people
Mm-hmm.
above 3000 have done close to every question. Or there are a lot of them haven't, but it's because they made a new account. That's like why they've only done 75 questions.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Also, doing every single contest, up solving every contest back to contest zero. That's what I'm doing right now.
Okay.
I think that's how you would go. That's how you would like make it through the mid 2000s ranking.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's it. I
Yeah, do we want to talk about string hashing?
yeah, I guess that's it. Go into string hashing.